I'm sure that the apostles and the early apostolic believers never dreamed that after the resurrection, and even after Yeshua's ascension into heaven, and Father's Spirit being poured out on Pentecost, that we would still be sitting here today, over 1900 years later, still waiting on Yeshua's return. I don't think that even John knew the timeline of his book of Revelation would take this long to be fulfilled. After all, remember Yeshua's departing words when his disciples asked him in Acts chapter 1, verse 6, "Will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel?" This was a very logical question on their part. After all, they knew the prophecies better than we do today concerning the promises to bring back the two houses together. But Yeshua answers them in verse 7 and says, "It's not for you to know times or seasons which the Father has put in his own authority." So you see, the timeline wasn't for them to know. But what is clear is that the Yahweh has never abandoned the covenant believers. That is the whole purpose of John's revelation, was to show the apostolic covenant believers over the last 1900 plus years the events that must transpire before Yeshua can return. Paul makes a comment concerning the timeline in 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, starting in verse 1, which states, "Now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Adonai Yeshua, our Messiah, and our gathering together to him, let no one deceive you by any means. For that day will not come unless a falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as Elohim in the temple of Elohim, showing himself that he is Elohim. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you of these things? And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom Adonai will consume with the breath of his mouth, and destroy with the brightness of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is according to the works of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason Elohim will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned, who do not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Now, Paul's prophecy to the Thessalonians is not going to start being fulfilled in the last 3.5 years during the Great Tribulation. No, my friends. Let me give you the proper interpretation of what Paul is saying to these early apostolic, Torah-observant Thessalonians throughout the Mediterranean area, who were just as concerned about when Yeshua would return as you and I are today. Paul gets this revelation concerning this man of sin from the proper interpretation of the book of Daniel, and what abominations he would do to those who reject the truth and receive not a love for the truth, as he explains, and how Father would send them a strong delusion that they would believe a lie, which would cause a great falling away from the one true faith to occur. In verse 6, when Paul says, "Now you know what is restraining," speaking of the man of lawlessness, or Torahlessness. Friends, Paul reminds them that he spoke of this when he was with them, that he was speaking about the ruling powers of Rome in his day, that was holding back the man of lawlessness from being revealed. And he could not write a letter and openly criticize Rome or Caesar. Paul was smarter than that. That would have been a capital offense in their day. Pagan Rome was what was ruling during their time, and it was pagan Rome that was going to hold back the next government prophesied in John's Revelation that would emerge and come into power once pagan Rome was removed. How do we know that this is what Paul was speaking about? That's easy, because as soon as pagan Rome was defeated by Constantine's armies in the 4th century, the man of lawlessness was raised up within the beast system that became known as the Roman Catholic Church and began to pass laws from Rome, just as Daniel prophesied he would do, and persecute the Torah-observant saints in the Messianic synagogues all over the Eastern Roman Empire. And this is when the great falling away began to take place in the Roman earth. And it continues to this very day. The fulfillment of his prophecy fits like a glove to both John's revelation and Daniel's prophecies. This is a matter of historical fact. Paul tells them that the mystery of lawlessness was already at work, just as John states in 1 John chapter 2, verse 18, which says that the Antichrist is coming, and even now are many Antichrists that have come. The falling away began when the papacy began to rule and change the laws of Torah under governmental force, which eventually led to the Inquisition. Paul identifies this man in verse 4 and says, who opposes and exalts himself over all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as Elohim in the temple of Elohim, showing himself that he is Elohim. The only ruling power to fulfill this prophecy in the Roman earth is the papacy, the beast system, the whore of Babylon. And Paul prophesies when the fall of this system will occur, also in verse 8, which says, whom Adonai will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. This also confirms Daniel's prophecy regarding the little horn that rises to power to rule and will still be in power when Yeshua returns, as Daniel describes him as the stone which was made without human hands, cut from the mountain, will come and crush their false image when Messiah returns, just as Paul describes when the man of lawlessness is destroyed because they rejected the love of the truth and believed the lie and will be condemned. This also confirms what Yeshua tells us will take place on Judgment Day in Matthew chapter 7, verse 22, which states, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness or Torahlessness. This is not hard to connect and interpret Paul, Daniel, and even John's prophecies in Revelation together if you anchor the 4 horses of the apocalypse as the rise and fall of pagan Rome, as it clearly reveals. From there, it is simply a matter of connecting Roman history and Roman Catholic Church history with the rest of the prophetic judgments in the book of Revelation, and you will see that for over 1,600 years that the papacy has been ruling, it is this system that has warred both in the heavenlies and against the saints on earth. But praise Yah that the end of the time of the Gentiles that Yeshua spoke of in Luke chapter 21, verse 24, is coming to a close. And this is why Father's Spirit is waking up and convicting millions all over the world to come out of Babylonian sun god worship and to receive Yeshua as Messiah and return to his teachings and instructions for life, his Torah, and to begin to honor Father's feast days, his Sabbath, discerning between the clean and the unclean, and the holy and the profane, and prepare to return to the covenant land in the greater Exodus. We live in marvelous times. I'm Bill Sanford, trying to put the book of Revelation in proper perspective in our day. Shalom.